Hello, my name is Thomas Atkinson, and today I will be presenting to you the knowledge that I've accumulated on autism. Before I tell you guys the wonders and the challenges of autism, I would like to tell you guys a story, a first-person narrative written by Kenneth Hall. Kenneth Hall was born in Northern Ireland, Belfast, in a time of great civil unrest. He was 9 years old when he wrote his first book, Asperger's Syndrome, The Universe and Everything. There he shares some of his interests and hobbies, including computers, running, reading, and his pet cat Sandy. Unfortunately, though, he does not like crowds, noises, or foods because of their texture. He's had a great support group growing up. His family and his friends were always there to nurture him and support him through tough times. And also, by age 8, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a type of autism. His schooling was very difficult, and that's what he talks about a lot about through the book. He went to a public school when he was younger. He grasped material quicker than his classmates, and because of that, he felt that comprehension questions and math questions were a waste of time, so he refused to do them. That led him to behavioral issues, because the teachers thought that he was being mean or being rude. So he went to the Rudolf Steiner School, which is a special school for children with behavioral issues. There he met Julie May. Julie May is his ABA mentor, and there she realizes that he needed to be homeschooled. While he was being homeschooled, one day he read a book for high school math, and he was able to read the book, understand it, take the high school exit tests by age 8, and pass them with flying colors. He's then become a very big spokesperson for autism in Ireland. Now, I've been talking a lot about autism, but what exactly is it? A lot of people know of autism because of the Autism Awareness Month and a lot of autism walkathons that have been going around, but not a lot of people know the science and the symptoms behind it. Autism is a developmental disorder. Now, this varies from student to student, person to person, but generally speaking, these three symptoms are prevalent across the spectrum. Decreased social skills, repetitive patterns, and they're not really flexible. They like to do the same routine over and over again every day. There is an autism spectrum. Scientists believe that it's a hereditary disease, and we know now that there's one child in every 68 born in America will be autistic. Because of it's very prevalent, there will be children with autism in the classroom, and it's very important to learn about the material that I will teach. This is the federal definition of autism. Now, I noted very important phrases here, such as verbal and nonverbal communication adversely affects a child's educational performance, repetitive activities, stereotyped movements, resistance to environmental changes or changes in daily routine, and usually responses to sensory experiences. Even in the New Jersey state definition, they have all of these things. Autism is a very studied and well-known thing, and people are still studying it today. Let's talk about the normal development of someone with autism. The cognitive development. Difficulty with theory of the mind. Theory of the mind is predicting people's actions based on their feelings and behaviors at that moment. So they have trouble guessing what somebody will do next. If they were looking at somebody who was shaking their hands in anger or yelling or screaming, they might not know what they'll do next. Difficulty with executive functioning. This is the ability to control one's behaviors, emotions, and thoughts. This is where the behavioral issues came in with Ken early on in his schooling. And weak central coherence, which is being able to pick up and focus on minute details, or on the grand aspect of things. People with autism tend to pick up on the minute details very well, but they can't understand or grasp the central argument. but it is important to say that it varies for each child, and with early intervention, these things tend to be smaller, and they tend to progress through. Social development. People with autism are not good with nonverbal communication. They are good with verbal communication, though. Unfortunately, though, in a conversation, nonverbal cues and emotional cues are the things that progress the conversation forward. For some reason, they have difficulty forming and maintaining friendships. People with autism find it difficult to make connections with people and maintain those connections. This is mostly due, though, to the fact that it's difficult for them to pick up on nonverbal cues and social cues as they're in a conversation. And they do not like to share interests or participate with others. But as I said, it does vary from person to person. When Kenneth Hall wrote that book, he was very happy to share his interests and pictures of his pet cat Sandy. Emotional development. People with autism tend to be calmed by outside factors. So, for example, with Kenneth Hall, he had a sleeping bag, and as a reward for doing something well, or as a reward for working hard, for an entire day he was allowed to stay in his pajamas and stay in that sleeping bag. He described the sleeping bag, and he loved the touch of it, and he loved how it cocooned him when he slept. So this is what it means that he's calmed by an outside factor. He does not like certain food textures or colors. He can be very emotional throughout the day, or he can let just one event set the mood for the entire day. And another aspect is that people with autism, they tend to resist change. They're not as flexible. They like a rigid schedule, and they like to follow that schedule every day. This is not necessarily a negative or a positive. It's just something that teachers need to keep in mind when they're progressing through the day, and they have a child with autism in their classroom. Physical development. People with autism, because it's a developmental disorder, people with autism tend to have underdeveloped brain, and this could lead to behavioral issues, balance issues, and coordination. But this is not true with Ken, because he loved to run and he loved to play, so it really does depend on each student. Let's talk about the levels of functioning. There's mild, moderate, and severe. Severe ASD, there's impaired cognitive development, so that means that they have an IQ of below 70. Difficulty speaking a language. Even with early intervention, 25% of individuals with severe autism can't even speak a language. They're very, very repetitive in their behavior, and that can they can be frustrated with certain events or certain outside stimuli, which can lead to further behavioral concerns. And a lot of times, people with severe ASD, they might not even know you're in the room. They might not want to interact with others around them, or engage in conversation, or engage in nonverbal communication. People with moderate autism, they tend to have an average or slightly below IQ, so that means an IQ of 100. They have difficulty communicating verbally and non-verbally. There are some behavioral concerns, but this is mostly due to the fact when they are overstimulated by their environment. Sometimes they're socially aloof. It depends on the person. As I've said, sometimes they might not like to talk to people, sometimes they might not be able to, because they're not able to pick up on the nonverbal cues and the social cues that progress a conversation. And then mild ASD. This is normal intelligence to above average intelligence. This is definitely the case with Kenneth Hall. There are few communication challenges. An individual with mild autism must be verbal but they will struggle with nonverbal cues. That means that they will be able to talk to people, but they might not initiate conversations, or they might not be able to pick up on the nonverbal cues, but at least they're initiating, which is very different with the moderate and severe. They're socially atypical, which means that they are not they are aware of the people around them, and they might engage others, they might not, but it depends on the person. And behavioral concerns, they might not be flexible with the changes, but they will not act out as much as someone with moderate or severe ASD. Some strengths of having a child with autism in your classroom are their attention to detail. They're skilled in certain areas. For example, with Kenneth, he was very skilled with computers and math and reading. People with autism tend to think logically. They're very confident. They don't let other people's views bring them down, and that can be a very big positive in certain social situations. They are visual learners. They're very loyal, honest, and they're unbiased listeners. This is all due to they're not able to pick up on nonverbal cues. So that white lie that we might say to appease others, they might not say it because they think that honesty is the best policy. And they're intelligent, depending on the level of functioning that they are. The few weaknesses that are present when there's a child with autism in the classroom is they might not want to study something that they're not interested in. They have difficulty showing and expressing emotions as well as picking up on emotions. They can only learn visually, so any kind of kinesthetic or lecture, they will not be able to pick out important information or use important information. In a story or in a conversation, many people might find little snippets of information that they think are very important, and they'll hold on to that. Somebody who has autism, instead of picking up on important aspects, they might pick on certain details and remember them. So that's difficult for them to remember useful information in a lecture, in a conversation, or in a story. People with autism, they tend to be overstimulated or understimulated by certain senses, such as noise or light. And people with autism are very empathetic and sympathetic, but because of their inability to show nonverbal communication and body language, it's kind of difficult to show to others that they are empathetic and they are sympathetic. 3 important accommodations that teachers can have when they have an autistic child in the classroom is they need to carefully plan and schedule the day out. They need to stick to the plan. So for example, they can have an opening activity in the beginning, then they can lead to their plan where it's a mix of visual learning along with the other types of learning to help the other people in the classroom, and then they can close out with checking homework that's due the day, and then sending the kids out to the next class. It's important that instructions are carefully broken down and explained. This makes sure that they're not frustrated or overloaded by the instructions. And number 3, the class must be a safe and respectful place for everybody, and this includes the child with autism. This fosters positive feelings, and it will not begrudge any students. These are 5 resources that I've picked that will help both teachers looking to help an autistic student and also parents of children with autism. The first, the Autism Society. It's an organization that's been operating for 50 years. This organization holds events that trains teachers, helps parents, and makes a fun day for the students. The Autism Society also can hold school events to help teach the students of that school more about autism. 365 Days of Autism is a website that offers a lot of tips, strategies, and lesson planning that will help students with autism. For example, you can make a binder of all important information, and instead of words, it can be pictures. The student can make that binder, and they'll be more likely to retain that information for the test. Autism Speaks is a very, very well-known organization that holds walkathons, and that has actually made the Autism Awareness Month. It's one of the biggest organizations in America, and it has a foothold in every state. The National Autism Resources website is a website for teachers. It gives more activities for the students, and as well as it sells materials, videos, and toys that will help educate your students and make the day fun for students with autism and students without. This last is a video that describes a movement that's been going on in England that broadens the education for autistic students. They firmly believe that everybody should be educated about autism because it's every 1 out of 68 or 100 births in the US and in England as well. If a teacher signs up for this organization, they have a chance to get a resource teaching box, which is filled with all these kinds of activities and materials that will help the students learn and grow. This is my Works Consulted. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation on autism, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.